Howdy do, ladies and germs. This is Alpha Man 1, but you already know that. Today, whatever. Anyway, I want to talk about something that I've always liked, and has been around for a long, long time. So, if you'll bear with me for just a second, I want to talk about these guys right here, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Let's just make a little adjustment to the camera there. Hey, alright. There you see it. The Ninja Turtles. That's what we're here to talk about today. Crazy to think that 29 years ago, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were created. Well, almost 29 years ago. Actually, a little over 29 years ago. Because it was May of 1984 that Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, who most people know more commonly as Laird and Eastman, created one of the great comic book franchises of all time. In fact, one of the greatest, but one that not a lot of people even realize is actually a comic book in the first place. Crazy, isn't it? But, nevertheless, we continue. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That is, of course, what I am referring to. Yes. And most people are more accustomed with the cartoon versions. Now, the original cartoon versions, of course, the ones you see here on my shirt. This version was created in 1987. And if you'll bear with me just for a second. Playmates Toys Incorporated was, of course, was approached first about the action figure line. They were a little bit cautious of the risk and requested that a television deal was put together first. And in December of 1987, December 28th, as a matter of fact, the Ninja Turtles cartoon series began. It started as kind of a little 5-part miniseries sort of thing, and then it was a regular Saturday morning cartoon. It had already reached syndication by the next year. In October, actually, of 98, it had reached syndication. I'm sorry, not 98, 88. And 13 more episodes on the way. I hear my fan blowing across there. In this original series, the Turtles were a little more comical than the original comic book had been, and I'll get back to the original comic book in a minute. They were always kind of cracking jokes, and they were kind of obsessed with pizza. I never really noticed that before, but I just watched something, and I'll get to that a little bit later on, that was created in 2009. That was for the 20th anniversary of the Ninja Turtles. But anyway, the cast included a couple of new characters and some very odd characters, and two that most people have always wanted to see show up in a movie: Bebop and Rocksteady, for beginners, Splinter. And also, one thing that was different from the original TV series, the 1987 TV series, from the original Ninja Turtles, was their headbands. Their masks were color-coded for each turtle. And in the comic books previously, originally it was all black and white, and then they all just wore red. But then, obviously, they changed that for the TV show. Probably to make it a little easier to tell each turtle apart, I would imagine. It was obviously a show. If you go back and you watch the original series, it was obviously a show for little kids. And, hey, for little kids, they want to make things simple. They want to make it colorful and funny. They couldn't really make it like the original comic book. And again, I'll get back to that in a minute. Now, you had some new characters, like I said, mentioned Bebop and Rocksteady. The Neutrinos, for anybody who remembers them from the original, from the first cartoon series, they weren't a part of the original comic. Also, Splinter, Master Splinter, the Shredder, and the Foot Soldiers actually stayed true to the comics for the most part, at least in appearance and alignment. Really, just only really in those two ways. Because, well, of course, as far as Splinter is concerned, instead of being Hamato Yoshi's mutated pet rat, Splinter was actually Hamato Yoshi, who himself was mutated into a giant rat. Giant rat. The Foot Soldiers changed from human ninja to an endless supply of robotic ninja grunts, basically. Which kind of allowed for a lot of them to be destroyed and without anybody actually dying. And that was part of the thing, it's just sort of the way they do it when they're making a show for kids. You can't really have somebody dying, per se. Not really. You can't actually show that. So instead of that, they just have the turtles blowing up a bunch of robots, which works out pretty well for that particular purpose. Like I said, that was for the children's audience, which was basically what they were making this for. Like I say, excessive violence would have really kind of... Parents are retarded when it comes to violence, okay? Most parents, not all parents. But a lot of parents just don't think that kids should be looking at violence. If you asked my dad, does it really make a difference? No. Not really. But, hey, what are you going to do, right? Krang, who was one of the original cartoon series, probably one of the most memorable characters, aside from, the Turtles and Shredder and Bebop and Rocksteady. He was actually inspired by the Utrom, who you actually see in the 2003 series, TV series. Of course, wasn't obviously inspired by the TV series. Sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought. One second. Oh, right. The Utrom were an alien race from Mirage Comics, who of course published the original Ninja Turtles series. The animated Krang, however, was an evil warlord type of guy. He came from Dimension X. And then, of course, you had characters like Baxter Stockman, who, for whatever reason, in the TV show, he went from being a black guy, an African American, to being some weird, bumbling joke of a white guy. And I never understood that. It was kind of like the reverse of Nick Fury. And I never understood why they changed Nick Fury, who was originally a white guy, into a black guy. Maybe they did it specifically for the movie as, I don't know. Whatever. Anyway. I guess there was some apprehension about having a villainous African American character in a children's cartoon. Maybe they felt that it would look too racist. I don't know. Or even for Shredder to boss around a black version of Stockman, that would have seemed perhaps a little racist. But no matter what the reason was, he was turned into a white guy, and he was basically Shredder's lackey. Later, mutating into some kind of weird fly guy. That was all very strange. It was cool, for me, when I was a little kid, when I was watching it, it was actually very cool, let me back that up a little bit. It might be a little close. For the final 2 seasons of the original show, the Ninja Turtles were sort of competing with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. The lead villain in the show was Lord Dreg, and most people probably won't remember Lord Dreg very much. But he was this evil alien dictator type overlord kind of guy who was sort of bent on conquering the world. And in mentioning the Power Rangers, kind of like Lord Zed. But he was trying to distract the public into believing that the Turtles were the enemy instead of him. Weird. But, it was kind of a cool storyline. That was sort of the end of the show. Toward the end of that particular version of the show. But, on September 25th of 1989, as we go backwards a little bit, the series was actually expanded to cover weekdays and had 47 episodes for that season. That's pretty incredible when you consider that most shows have maybe 20, 21 shows per season, and that's kind of a lot. I'm going by, like, the ones that tend to have a lot of shows per season, like pretty much any version of Law and Order, okay? There were 28 episodes, 28 new syndicated episodes for season 4, but only 13 aired in 1990. The European Vacation episodes weren't showed until the U.S. until at least in the States, until the USA Network started showing reruns of the Turtles in late 1993. And there was another episode called Awesome Easter that wasn't actually, it was written, that was actually made back in 89, I think, even, and didn't air until 1991. For whatever reasons. The episodes were delayed. I have this in my little notes here that I have. The episodes were actually delayed for a reason. Either animation or scheduling problems. The Turtles were very well known for some famous expressions. Sort of surfer lingo-esque type of things. Especially my boy Michelangelo. For those who remember, he was the one who wore orange. Let's see. There's Michelangelo right there. Mikey, for some of us. Some of these things were, phrases like bummer, dude, bogus, radical, far out, tubuloso, bodacious, and of course, the most famous phrase for the Ninja Turtles, cowabunga. Yeah. So the Turtles were pretty freaking awesome. Now, in April of 1990, a drug prevention television special was broadcast on ABC, NBC, and CBS, named Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue, that featured some of the most popular cartoons at the time. Representing the Ninja Turtles was, of course, Michelangelo, who was voiced by Townsend Coleman. Starting in September of 1990, actually earlier September of 1990, different opening sequence to the show. The show began to run on CBS. Now I actually remember this happening. And the CBS, the weekend version of the show on CBS actually ran for about a full hour. And that was until 94, which initially aired a few Saturday exclusive episodes back to back. There was this funky Turtle Tips thing that I remember. I don't remember much about it, though. They were sort of public service announcement kind of things, Sort of like at the end of almost every G.I. Joe episode, when G.I. Joe would come out and he would tell the kids, well, you should remember to always do this, kids, which when you're a little kid, yeah, okay, it was sort of corny, but it was kind of cool too because it was G.I. Joe telling you. But enough about G.I. Joe. Where was I? Oh, trying to find my place in my notes. Right, let's see. I cannot believe I actually lost my spot in my notes. Okay, so, anyway, right, here we go. The show in 94, or after 94, I should say, the show was actually reduced to only a half an hour show, and 8 episodes per season, grouped into a CBS, what they called the CBS Action Zone block, that also featured the show Wildcats, which is a pretty cool thing, and there are a couple of DC characters that were in that show. Number one, Grifter, and I'm trying to remember the names of any of the other characters. The only other one I can actually think of at the moment is Mull. And it was kind of cool because it was sort of almost like an alternative X-Men. But anyway, enough about that. Right, Wildcats. Oh, and also another show called Skeleton Warriors, which I remember, but I don't remember really watching it much. Both shows were canceled after their after only one season. The Ninja Turtles kept its stayed on the CBS Action Zone. There were 2 shows that were also produced by Fred Williams, who I believe also did the Ninja Turtles. The series actually ran until November 2nd of 96, when the Ninja Turtles aired their final episode. The enormous popularity of the Turtles, the Ninja Turtles' popularity back then was huge, and you got a show called Cheetah Men. You got Wild West COW, the Boys of Moo, Boys of Moo, Mesa. I remember this show. A lot of people might remember this show. They were all basically bulls. It also gave us Road Rovers, Street Sharks, Extreme Dinosaurs, and Biker Mice from Mars. A lot of the shows that did okay. And there was another show. There was another show that I haven't mentioned yet that spawned from the Ninja Turtles and actually had a crossover episode. Actually spawned directly from the Ninja Turtles because the show actually aired. The first appearance of these characters was within the Ninja Turtles universe, and these characters were the Battletoads. Some will remember the Battletoads. I do. I don't recall the show lasting a real long time, but it was pretty cool for what it was. There are 193 episodes of the Ninja Turtles, and for anybody who really wants to see them, you can get them all on DVD, and actually probably VHS as well. Now, I'm actually really kind of hoping that the Ninja Turtles are going to pop up on Netflix. That'd be really cool. Hint, hint, Netflix. There were I just recently found out there was an anime version of the Ninja Turtles. From what I can tell, there are only 2 episodes of it that I can find any record of. And they're both what they call OVAs, and I don't actually know what that stands for. So I'm sure there's somebody out there who does. I'd love to know, so feel free to tell me. This series was made in 1996, and it was titled Mutant Turtles Chojin Densetsu-hen. The OVA was sort of similar in tone to the 87 TV series, and uses pretty much the same voices from TV Tokyo's Japanese dub of the 1987 series, because of course they obviously had to dub the series for the Japanese audience so they could understand what the hell they were saying, right? So that worked really well for them. The first episode was made to advertise the TMNT Super Mutants toy line. and it featured the Turtles as sort of superheroes who gained costumes and superpowers with the use of mutastones, while Shredder and Bebop and Rocksteady gained supervillain powers with the use of a dark mutastone. I haven't actually seen this, and I don't know what it's anything like. As sort of with, which is kind of the same sort of deal as Super Sentai from Japan and Power Rangers from the States. Power Rangers spawned from Super Sentai, and they're kind of along the same lines. The four turtles in the Japanese version would combine together to form a giant turtle saint, is what they called. Like I said, I haven't actually seen this version, so I can't really speak much on it. The second episode was pretty much created just to advertise Metal Mutants toys, in which the characters gain Seiya-esque mystical metal armor that can transform into beasts. 7 Japanese mutante stories, I guess was what it is, encased in a magic mirror that control the metal beasts based on the sun, the moon, and the 5 elements. But enough about the anime series, because I doubt that there's too many people in the States that have actually seen the anime series. So, there you have it. Now, we go back for a moment to the original series, the original comic book, which was published by Mirage. Now, Eastman and Laird, Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird, their Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles premiered May of 1984. It was ready to go, good to go. They brought it to a Comic-Con, a comic book convention, for those who don't know what that is. It was held at a local hotel in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It was picked up and published by Mirage, and pretty much the rest is history from there. Now, Eastman and Laird worked, were a part of the original cartoon from '87, so, there was at least some continuity there. They changed things. They obviously, like I mentioned before, changed things to be more child-friendly and to go more with the children's market for the cartoon. The comic book stayed pretty much the same as far as I know. And the Ninja Turtles comics are still there today. You can pick them up at your local comic book shop. I would actually suggest it because the current stories, the actual current story, is pretty freaking awesome. I wish I had actually gotten into collecting the Turtles comics sooner, but there you are in May of 1984, which means, ladies and gentlemen, that, believe it or not, because of a strange technicality, the Ninja Turtles are actually the same age as Vincent Kennedy McMahon's WrestleMania. Yes, it's true, ladies and gentlemen, because the Ninja Turtles officially turned 1 as of May 1985. And what else happened in 85? WrestleMania 1. Just thought I'd throw that in there because it's sort of a strange fact. Now, moving forward. Sorry, I have a lot of notes here. In 1997, the Ninja Turtles started a live-action series, lasted a year. This actually directly follows the events of their 3 live-action movies. And before I get into the live-action TV series, I want to talk for just a second about the movies. The first movie, there were 3 of them that were produced all within the early 90s. The first one, if I remember correctly, was probably 1989, actually. The second one was 92, and the third one was, I want to say, 94 or 95. I don't remember off the top of my head, and I should. I know the first one was 89, and I'm sure the second was 82, but I forget what year the third one was. And honestly, I don't think there were really that many people that thought the third one was really that great. I enjoyed it being a kid. I thought it was cool. I even actually still have a copy of it in with my collection of movies. But, hey, there you go. So, anyway. There were those three movies. Now, the first two movies were pretty darn good. And the first one actually stayed true to the original comic books, not the cartoon. And I think there were a lot of people that were a bit confused by some of the stuff. Like, for example, the fact that in the first movie, they said that Splinter wasn't actually Hamato Yoshi. He was Hamato Yoshi's pet rat, who was mutated into a human, an anthropomorphic, somewhat human rat. They kept... But that is actually the way it happened, not the way they said it in the cartoon. But I think they did that to make it a little easier for little kids to understand in the original cartoon back in '87. There were a lot of toys. There were toy versions of the Turtle Van, the Turtle Blimp, all four turtles: Shredder, Splinter, Bebop, Rocksteady, April O'Neil, Casey Jones, Krang, Baxter Stockman, Foot Clan, pretty much any character that appeared in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon became a toy. I had a few of them. In fact, I believe I actually had at one point all four of the turtles, and I had this weird Splinter that turned into the Turtle Van. It was like a transformer. You could transform it into the Turtle Van, which was kind of interesting, but sort of weird. Whoa. I always wanted to get Shredder. Oh, I had Bebop and Rocksteady, too. Well, at least I'm sure that I had Bebop. I'm pretty sure I had both Bebop and Rocksteady, but that doesn't matter. Nobody cares about that. Back to the topic at hand. Sorry, I got a little bit sidetracked there. The feature films did pretty well. The first two were awesome. Okay, the second one, I know people were disappointed. I kind of was too. Who the hell are Toka and Razor? What the hell is that, New Line Cinema? And more importantly, the people who wrote this up. Where are Bebop and Rocksteady? That's what people wanted to see. And we get Toka and Razor instead. So, hey, whatever. It is what it is. We had a live-action series that lasted all of a year. Yeah, and I think I watched it a couple of times. And in this live-action TV show, they actually introduced us to a fifth turtle. Probably not such a great idea, just for whatever it's worth. A female turtle, the first female turtle, and I don't know about anybody else, but I can see slight conflict there. Especially if you're an adult, you can kind of see where I'm going there. This creates other problems, like 4 male turtles, 1 female. The odds are not in her favor. But the live-action series lasted only a year. She was actually skilled in what was known as the mystical arts of shinobi. The series was sort of a loose continuation of the movie franchise, and they kind of continued it in saying that the Shredder had been defeated by the Turtles, and they encountered some new villains. There were other connections to the films that include like the fact that Splinter's ear had been cut off, or part of his ear had been cut off. Foot soldiers were human. The Turtles lived in an abandoned subway station. They made the abandoned subway station even pretty close to the one that they find in the movie. And that was actually their lair in the second and third movie, come to think of it. The Next Mutation, which is what the show is called, Ninja Turtles, The Next Mutation. Also, for some reason, made a guest appearance on Power Rangers in Space. It only got canceled after only 1 season. 26 episodes, and, well, that was it for that. Now, let's see. 6 years passed, and the Green Team Turtle Power made its return from the ethos. Now, for those who are comic book collectors, you'll already know that the comic was going strong, and has been, and is, and probably will be for a long, long time. But we didn't see hide nor hair of them on TV or in movies or anything really other than comic books for 6 years. 1998 was the end of it. And I kind of thought, personally, that that was going to be the end of the Ninja Turtles. But I was wrong. Because in 2003, the Ninja Turtles returned. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles made their epic return to the cartoon world. And this series was produced until 2009 by 4Kids Entertainment. And it aired on what was called the Fox Box block, which got later to move to CW 4Kids, which was actually, I don't know about anybody else. Here, where I am, it was Channel 2, and it had, it was the WB, and then it became the CW. So CW 4Kids, and that's where the Turtles went. It was co-produced by Mirage Studios, owned by Mirage Comics, and Mirage owned a third of the rights to the series. Mirage's significant stake in creative control resulted in a cartoon that is more closely, much closer to the original comics. It made it darker and edgier than the 87 cartoon. And in the 87 cartoon, I kind of understand, with the way they were thinking about cartoons back then, they had to tread real lightly when they were making shows for kids. You know, you had to limit the violence in the show. There had to be some sort of message in there, like Captain Planet is a great example of this. And Captain Planet was an awesome show. It was, because all these kids have these cool magic power rings. They each have their own powers. And when they combine the powers together, you create Captain Planet. Now, for Captain Planet, that has to kind of suck. And I'll do a show on Captain Planet at some point to get more into that. But I was using that as an example. The Ninja Turtles, 2003 to 2009. And in 2009, they celebrated their 20th anniversary. And there is a movie out there somewhere, sort of a movie, called Turtles Forever. And this is one of the most epic and one of the most trippy Ninja Turtles things I have ever seen. Because not only do you get the 2003 to 2009 version, you get the old 87 cartoon version and the original comic book versions of the Turtles, as well as their villain counterparts. Freaking weird. I can't say that I ever thought I would see anything like that. The only thing that they couldn't really work in there was the live action versions, but that's okay. They did a great job with it. It was actually pretty cool. And it kind of pointed out how corny and just plain odd the 87 version of the Turtles were. But they were still pretty freaking awesome. They were radical, to steal one of Michelangelo's phrases. Now, 2009, that the series went from 2003 to 2009. In 2009, the series ended, and the episodes were still airing, and they had some sort of short lived sort of spin-off things that might even have actually been part of that, and I just didn't see them until later. Last year, the Turtles were revived once again by Nickelodeon. Now, some people might be going, Now, Nickelodeon has come up with some of the great cartoons. Actually, let me back that up a second. They came up with some of the greatest cartoons of the 1990s. Ren and Stimpy, Doug, Rugrats. That's all you need to know. Not to mention Rocko's Modern Life and a few others that came out in the 90s. But, and DOZ 101, because I know you're going to watch this, screw SpongeBob SquarePants. That show was retarded. I'll give you Squidward, but that's all I give you. Anyway, back to the Ninja Turtles. 2012, last year. And let's see, I didn't actually get a date for when exactly last year, but I think, if I remember correctly, it was this last winter, 2012, the winter of 2012. I want to say like November or maybe December. I don't really remember, like I said. It was something like that. Actually, now I think on it, it may have actually even been October. Anyway, doesn't matter. Nickelodeon revived the Ninja Turtles, and it's more of a... It's actually a CGI version, which I actually kind of like. Now, there was... Some people will remember the fourth Ninja Turtles movie, and yes, I left it out because it was an animated movie. It wasn't a live action, but it was still a movie. So... but most people will remember that, and it was actually a pretty good movie for what it was. You know, it was cool. And that was pretty much CGI. Now, they've actually revived the Ninja Turtles in a CGI type of show, and it's actually a pretty darn good show. Now, this leads me... but I gotta say this before I go on to the next point. I gotta say this. If nothing else... From 87 to 96, the Ninja Turtles really helped the pizza industry. I mean, seriously. They must have sold more pizza than the Noid. I don't think Pizza Hut ever had an icon. Than the Noid and Little Caesar combined. And that's saying something, because I'm sure they sold plenty of pizza. But I think they helped pizza sell better than anything else, because they were obsessed, as I mentioned. But all of that I've said about the Ninja Turtles brings me to what this whole video has been about. A big announcement. Some people will already know this. Next year, and I'm excited. I'm excited because next year, we get a fourth live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's true. Look it up. Go on to IMDb. If you don't believe me, IMDb, Internet Movie Database. It's imdb.com. Search Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2014. You'll see I'm telling the truth. Now, I'm going to let you guys go and look that up. But I'm excited about this. Because hopefully we're going to get... hopefully this should be a pretty awesome movie. From what I can tell, and there's not really a whole lot out there about it yet. They haven't really released much about it yet. It is a live action, at least for the most part. The Turtles themselves, while they are played by... real actors, are going to be sort of CGI. I think. I might be wrong. They might actually be turtle costumes. But this is sort of what I'm gathering from what I know. They've used motion capture for the turtles, which could mean that when you actually see the turtles, while it is the actual actors' movements, you're going to see a sort of CGI version. But a very realistic CGI version, I'm sure. Now, I can tell you that, oh crap. Well, since I can't remember what I was just going to say, Mos Def, I think it's Mos Def, has been cast as Baxter Stockman. Epic, brilliant, really good move. If you're going to put Baxter Stockman in, do the original version, do the 2003 version, make sure he's the black guy. Because, hey, who said that an African-American guy can't be the bad guy? And why not, right? You cast Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin. That was a move I never understood. Kingpin was never African American. He was never black, okay? Never, ever, ever, ever. Kingpin was a big old motherfucking white dude, a big old fat bastard. And he was fat, but it was mostly solid muscle. Not the point. Back to this movie. Good God, I can't believe I'm really that stupid that I've forgotten this. Let me see here. Oh, right. I remember now. Have it in my notes. Sorry, I was checking the text. Megan Fox is cast as April O'Neil. Now, also in this movie, William Fichtner. I believe that's how you say his name. I might be wrong. But most people will know him from the movie The Dark Knight. Heath Ledger and Christian Bale. You saw him at the beginning. He was the bank manager guy with the shotgun. He is cast as the Shredder. No, I don't want that. Will Arnett is also cast in this movie. Now, the people who are actually cast as the Turtles are names I don't really know well. Alan Ritchson, I believe is how you say the guy's name, is cast as Raphael. Sorry, I'm sort of infatuated with this text. You have, let me see. No. I hate to do this in the middle of a video, I really do. Jeremy Howard cast as Donatello. I don't really know much about him. Peter Plozek cast as Leonardo. And cast as Michelangelo, a guy named Noel Fisher. Now, this guy I do know of. He was in... he played a part in Law & Order SVU. He was there for, I want to say, at least 5 or 6 episodes. And he worked as an ME's tech, a medical examiner tech. He worked with the medical examiner. And, their whole storyline thing was weird. Also cast in this movie, Will Arnett. He's cast as a character named Vernon Fenwick. I don't really know where that character will come in. Whoopi Goldberg has also been cast in this movie. Kind of interesting. Don't know where she'll fit in, but we'll find out. Also, for those who are fans of Saturday Night Live, Abby Elliott, who's one of the newer cast members to Saturday Night Live, has been cast in this movie. I don't know what part exactly, but I do have confirmed that he has been. Now, I left one character out. I did. I left out the character of Splinter, Master Splinter. I mean, of course, you can't do it without Splinter. You can't do it without Splinter. That would be ridiculous. So, cast as Splinter, a guy named Danny Woodburn, and he is a little person. But this is actually kind of an interesting casting call. Now, some people will remember him from Seinfeld. He was one of Kramer's friends. You saw him on numerous occasions. He was actually the only little person I really remember being on the show. He's been in other things too. Trying to think of what else he's been in. He was in the movie Mirror Mirror. Yeah, he's been in a lot of things. Anyway, it looks pretty good. Now, the only character I'm going to put that down. The only character that they're leaving out of the movie, at least that I know of so far, and I am I'm kind of disappointed in this one, because you go back to the old live-action movies, and shite. Shite. Elias Koteas played this character and did a beautiful job. Beautiful. Casey Jones is being left out of the new movie, and like I say, Elias Koteas did a beautiful job as Casey Jones. And I actually, as far as Elias Koteas, I have to say, I can't think of really anything that I've seen him in that he didn't do a wonderful job in. Now, another guy who was involved in the original movies that I'm fairly certain is not involved in these, Ernie Reyes Jr., who was in a number of other movies, Surf Ninjas probably most notably. He played Keno in Ninja Turtles 2. And actually also did a bunch of stunt work and was more or less Donatello in the first movie. If you don't believe me, watch the credits. Or look it up on IMDb. I'm sure you'll find that it's there. Anyway, as we get back to the point at hand, I've been jabbering on here for a while. This has been my ode to the Ninja Turtles. I am excited for this movie, 2014. Huge announcement. I will see you Hepcats on the flip side. Peace out, cowabunga, and remember, always believe in turtle power.